We are meeting in the Sturbridge Center Office Building at 301 Main Street on the second floor, if you'd like to join us. We have a quorum check. We have one missing, which is David Barnacle. Everyone else is present. CPA met last night. I went to the meeting. Very little, we moved along. Most of the finances that we had talked about from the previous meeting, although they were not all, how can I say it, detailed out the way they should have by this time, so it's going to be interesting to see if they make it through finance and if they make it onto the town meeting floor, some of them. So that's that. Trails meeting, trail we will not have, open space, nothing, and Lakes Advisory, nothing. So approval of minutes will be next week, next meeting. We have no walk-ins. Becky, why don't you,
Yep, we have a tree removal. Do you want to do that now?
sure, anything that
Okay.
we can get out of the way.
Yep, well, actually, first, let me do a couple updates. 'Cause
Steve has to go see how he did on his science project.
Tree removal may have been coming in,
Nice.
so I'll give the other little updates just in case she's a couple minutes late. I don't know that she
Oh,
definitely
okay,
is
yeah, give
coming in.
anything that,
Yeah.
go any way you want.
So, to go to old business, 179 Main Street, I did speak to the engineer working on that today, and I received a, it's kind of a draft plan. No one's coming in for that. I think,
Who's the engineer?
Burton Engineering, Frank's working on that. So, let me just pull it up real quick. I think it would be useful, right, if we go back out and kind of look at where they're proposing these, because it's not, I mean, because this is kind of after the parking lot's been done, it's a little unconventional, but I think he can explain why he thinks it's going to work and how he came up with his calculations and everything. I think it'd be useful.
But he's not coming in tonight?
Correct. They just sent this to me today. I emailed them, said, hey, do you have any update
So
for?
it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting?
Yes, and that's what, I said, if we can do a site visit coming up.
Can we get them to be there at the site visit? Would it be worthwhile?
Yes, yep, already done. So we'll meet them 9 o'clock this coming Tuesday. So this hatched area, from my understanding, I just had a quick conversation with Frank today, is the area that was known as gravel parking lot, and then he ran his calculations if he changed it to paved, and what he would need for infiltration. So these sizes should accommodate that. One would get more than the other. I mean, he talked about that a little bit. I think it'd be useful to have him kind of run through that. Obviously, they weren't prepared to come here tonight, anyways.
Okay.
But we can go out there. There wouldn't be a lot of disturbance associated with this. The things I think we need to think about is, this is where our 100-foot buffer zone is here, 200's here. I think their plan is to have you guys say okay and put these in. So I think we need to talk about that and what permitting strategy would be best for this.
Okay.
So,
That's over the side and down, huh?
yes, yep. And he's
And
saying he
both
doesn't.
of them are on his property?
Correct, yep. And where they're kind of located, no large trees would come out. I don't know if any, obviously there's trees in this area, so I don't know how much disturbance is associated with it or a limit of work.
Is this his lot line or something?
Yes, that should be the property line.
Okay.
Yep.
Because he intonated when we were there that the lot line was the edge of the,
That's what I
Parking.
was wondering
yeah.
about. But there's something here, but I don't know what that is.
Did he talk about that pipe that comes out at the bottom of
I
the
did,
slope?
when I spoke to Frank about that originally, I mentioned that pipe, and he had said, he went back and he emailed me after that, and he looked at the plans, because I said, I don't know where that catch basin up there comes out, and he said he would look at that and they would work to address that too. So I don't know if that's coming out
Because
here somewhere. I think it's, catch basin's up here, but I did not ask him about that today, if this incorporated that, but he did say he was going to
It doesn't. look
address
like it.
that, because it's,
and that's a lot of water,
yeah.
and that somehow has to be factored in addition to the runoff from the parking lot itself.
Right.
Because there was a very significant flow coming out of that day that I was there.
Wasn't there a comment about all the roof drains flowing into?
That There was, yes, supposedly the roof drains are tied in, and I would assume that that was where they come out because it's all underground.
Isn't there supposed to be a detention basin over here somewhere?
There is something here. I don't know. We didn't look at it when we were there. I mean, they're just showing it looks like an apron here, or a pipe with an apron, but I thought there was. I
There,
can
yeah,
pull
it seemed
up.
like they mentioned that that they had
Yeah.
put put stormwater controls
Yeah.
over.
He sent me a set of plans when this went through the town back then. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
haven't really looked at them all. That's over here.
Took pictures of that, but I don't think I took a picture that showed where it is, so we'd have to go down to the bottom of the hill
So,
and find
right,
that hole.
there's,
Snow storage there.
yeah, underground
Underground
detention
detention
chambers
chambers,
with
okay.
an outlet here, so.
So we think those are there?
These are here. So when they redeveloped this site, they had to go through the permitting for the town stormwater bylaw for what they were paving over here. But at the time, they weren't proposing to
Right.
pave this or change its compaction rate and runoff rate.
Right.
If you want to look at it that way. So this didn't get addressed at that time.
Yeah, okay.
So I guess I have to do a little research too about that, so.
Right.
So we could go out on Tuesday. I think, from my understanding, Frank said he could be there
Okay.
and kind of go over his calculations and why he believes this plan will address that. Now, one thing to keep in mind too, and this has kind of come up with the site next door, my conversations, is that you're looking at that kind of change. So the regulations, whether you're looking at Wetlands Protection Act or, if it's in the town bylaw or not, is that, if it's an existing site, obviously they don't have, it's different than if you're looking at a new development site.
Right.
So moving past this one and going to 173, like he was saying, because there was an existing parking lot there, I mean, granted, it was probably just flowing off that into upland vegetated areas, and it wasn't being all directed to one spot. When they sized that basin, they sized it for, I think, the increase, I forget how he explained it exactly, but after we do our site visit at 179, we can go over to 173. So obviously the basin at 173, if that had been a wooded site where things were mostly infiltrating, that basin would be a lot bigger for that development that's there now. But because they had existing pavement there, it's a redevelopment, they are only subject to the provisions of the stormwater regulations to the maximum extent practical. So they don't have to meet the full, the attenuation rates and things like that. So they don't have to hold all of that back. So I think that's part of kind of our issue there a little bit.
What about the state?
It's the same thing with the state.
The state extended their,
Oh, you're talking about the pipe? I thought you were
Pipe.
talking about DEP.
no, I'm talking about the state, the, DOT.
Highway.
Well, that's what we need to discuss too.
That to me is the biggest
Issue there?
issue, that's like.
We don't know because we haven't actually observed it while
Right,
it
true.
was raining.
Right.
But
I think Ed's right. The damage that was done by the old pipe before that new system was put in for that garage.
Right, that scour right
All
there.
that scour. So I think you're right. I think the highway pipe is the really bad
Well,
culprit.
but something that Becky said, I think, bothers me quite a bit, because we don't know, okay, so granted, it was paved before,
Yeah.
but we don't know where that runoff was going. Would be surprised if all of that runoff was going to one spot.
Right.
Now, what they've done is they've changed everything to make all of the runoff for the site go to
Yeah.
one spot.
Right.
And they've undersized
Yep.
the stormwater treatment for that.
Right.
I mean, fine,
Yeah.
it's a redevelopment, but they've completely changed where that runoff is going.
Right.
And they can't, and it's not handling it.
Yep.
So we're
Right.
compounding it with whatever's coming from the DOT.
Yeah, that's more-
And we've got obviously
Yep.
this huge situation where we're
Yeah.
gonna have the Grand Canyon there, you
Yep.
know, in another couple of years, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
You can
talked,
do flyovers and stuff.
and I talked to Frank a little bit too. I'm like, well, I think that there could be some, not quick fixes, but there's things that could be done to those extended dry basins.
Yeah.
You know, like he was talking about that, and I kept bringing up that kind of check dam in the middle there.
Right.
Well, he was saying, he's like, well, actually, that needs to get cleaned out because it's supposed to be stone, and water's supposed to be able to flow through there. I'm like, well, that would be more of a problem. We should be trying to retain more in there and not try to get it out of the pipe quicker because that's what's
They
happening.
need to raise that outlet too.
Well, right, I think so too. But I think if we go out there and Frank can explain the system and we talk about it, but I think Frank was like, yeah, if we dig it out a little bit, we can help hold a lot more back. It'll help with the small storms, but maybe not all the big storms. So I think there's things we can do. And they said, yeah, and where the outlets come out, it's just a riprap swale going out. It's not, it should be, like, I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be designed where it's kind of like a little pooling area. I think that would help a lot. But I think, right, we need to think about Mass DOT, who's coming in tonight for our other projects, in that pipe and the issue it's causing too.
How about the level of the outlet in that second pond? Is like this far off the bottom
know,
of the
that's
pond.
what
It
I know.
should be
See,
6
I think you're gonna have
inches.
to come back,
I
I think we need
agree.
to come back to what one of you guys said. We gotta go there when it's
Right.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we don't realize what we're looking at. I think it's much more,
Yeah.
greater magnitude
Yeah.
than,
Right.
I think you're right.
you know, because, I mean, I've been around this town long enough to know when I see something that's that gutted and that straight, that's moving
Yeah.
some big stuff.
Yeah.
You're not
And I-
kidding.
And I think, you know, right, I talked to the owner a little bit today, and he's like, I had 3 engineers working on this, and it was designed and approved by everybody. It's not my fault, and I get that, but
Yes, it is.
it's causing a problem
Right.
now,
You can have 25 engineers working on it, it's still your fault.
right?
Yep, that's right.
So,
Buck stops with him.
Yeah.
so we can go to 179, go to 173.
Yep.
Maybe it'd be raining.
Is Frank
You know?
doing both of them?
Yes. Yep.
Good.
Yeah,
And I did ask Frank too, because I told him about the oil sheen we've seen in the pond, what his maintenance records are for, going in there and doing maintenance activities. Frank said he checked the catch basins when they were out there. There was like 6 to 12 inches of sediment, so he didn't think they need to be cleaned at a time, but he didn't know when he's cleaned out his like other oil water separator units. So I think we need, to see that he's doing his appropriate maintenance there, so we don't have that exiting, because that's,
Is there any maintenance associated with these underground detention chambers, like manhole covers that you go into to?
well, this
clean them
one,
out?
it's got a storm scepter here. It must have some type of maintenance with that too, but we
Yeah.
can ask them about that too when we're out there. Because, people aren't maintaining these systems, they're not gonna function correctly.
Right.
And I think that's what we're seeing, that
And the other thing, I'll make my, my observation, when we were out there, the roof drains were not hooked in. There were a solid number of roof drains that were open at about 4 feet above the ground.
Are you talking about 179 or 173?
179,
Okay.
179, 73, I think, is all hooked in.
Well,
I saw at least one that went underground.
Yeah,
I
I
thought
didn't
I
say
did
there were
too.
none.
Right.
I'm just
No.
saying that.
I didn't notice those, so
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
well, I noticed when we were at 173 that the garage building, those ones were just coming down and going into the basin, but it may have been designed that way. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
I know that it's, you have to read these reports, some of the subcatchment areas they were put into dry wells, but that might have been from the other building or the gas canopy.
Right.
And then I asked Frank too, I said, I noticed, there was a lot of plantings that he was supposed to have done, where like they're parking on the side there where we parked.
Yeah.
All the cars, there's supposed to be a lot of shrubs over there and closer to the basin, I just don't know if those are planted and then died or whatnot, but,
Yeah.
so.
What's next?
All right, we got a couple minutes here, I'm not sure if,
Hamilton Rod and Gun Club coming in?
No, they're not coming in, so,
Check them off?
the only thing we had that I wanted to discuss, and, you know, we should have did a site visit before this meeting, but we can go out there too, is that assessment that their wetland consultant sent us in. I gave you a hard copy. I printed more if you need them. You know, her kind of assessment of the impacts from, you
Yeah.
know, sediment and runoff from the site. Do you want to talk about that now, or do you?
Sure.
Sure. Mary Ann DePinto,
Yes, let me.
My old friend.
your old buddy, huh? I'll try to be good.
Be good.
I have trouble, you know that.
With her?
I was very unimpressed with her on South Pond.
Here you go.
Yep.
That's-
Actually, it was Donna's house. Donna Grell's house,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So this is an evaluation of what she thinks is there. Is she, who's she working for?
She works for Ramco.
So isn't Ramco responsible for coming up with a solution to the status?
For what? For an assessment of impacts to resource areas, or?
Yeah, for a solution to the impacts.
Right, well, I think what she's saying is that there's a lot of things going on in this area, and
Right.
cumulatively, those things could have added to some sediment observed in this area. And then she also says that she found an amount of fine sediments positive. She thought it was relatively insignificant, and she would recommend no action taken to remove that silt, so that's within Cedar Lake.
Yeah.
And I
saw
don't, I
that.
don't disagree with some of the things she's saying here, but I think, you know, especially, I mean, I've seen what, you know, high flow in that area. We have, you know, obviously we have the Mass DOT drainage structure issues. We have, the dam at Hamilton Rod and Gun Club. When I was out there was a lot of water flowing over that, going through that culvert, which is perched, so it's creating a scour hole and it's depositing sediment. It's also tearing apart the banks there. But, you know, and I have some pictures when I was out there when Mass DOT was doing the work. I mean, there's a lot of sediment underneath the, in like that kind of causeway underneath the highway there. You can walk through there. But, I mean, I think it's a natural substrate. I mean, does it make sense to remove some small things in there? I don't know. I mean, I think, right, when, you know, it did carry a lot of fine sediment out. I mean, I saw it and, you know, I can show you the pictures. I think you've seen some of those when I was out there. But, right, how do we
What
determine?
What do we do? What's the solution?
What's the solution? I mean, I don't know if, I mean, I kind of thought that with Mass Highway, that the BSC group was gonna kind of look at the profile of the substrate there,
Yeah.
and give us an idea, you know, like a soil scientist
Yeah.
person would give us some kind of information to help us with that, you know, but.
We also had, in years past, a lot of water coming down Hamilton Road and going into that. There was a real serious wash on
right.
the opposite side of the road coming down the hill. They worked, I think, to put stone in there.
I remember seeing,
yeah.
coming across something for
Yeah.
that. Some pictures of
Yeah.
that.
I don't know how much that's impacted it either.
Do you want to see some of the pictures I took of that area when they were
Sure.
doing the work? I think,
Yeah.
I don't think our 6:15's coming.
I don't think so either, but I think we don't have a request for a continuation on that. I think we need to issue a determination based off of what we have for that
Okay.
request. Do you want to look at these photos now? Okay.
While you're doing that, let me read the statement.
Go ahead, yeah.
In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area, and/or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaws and associated regulations. Can't believe that's all one sentence. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of a notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line, proof of legal newspaper advertisement. These items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you.
Now, I don't know how well you guys can see these photos from
Yeah.
where you are. I mean, I can't see it very well here, but I can see it here. So this was like on top of the bridge
Yeah.
there.
Right.
So this is right, this is where the stream comes in. And you can kind of see this is where this is where the stream comes in, it's the
Yep.
channel. Hello. This is when they were doing the work over here, but you can kind of see, some sediment in here. Is that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is in underneath, so you can kind of see a lot of there's the
Right.
culvert, so kind of a lot of that has washed in there, but that
Yep.
could be, it's, everything that's kind of going on there.
Right.
But right, so you can see this culvert here, and this whole pile, I think, is probably, if you put a stick in there, we're gonna have a pretty big hole there probably. But I
Right.
think that's also washed out this bank here where that paved swale comes down, that's all damaged.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And over here is where the pipe comes from, those like kind of staggered detention basins.
So this is on the north side?
Correct, yep,
Because I
yep.
actually
Yeah.
haven't seen this before.
Oh, yeah, so yeah, Hamilton Road's right here, yep.
Okay.
Becky's standing waist deep in the water.
Yeah.
And so this is looking into the lake. I mean, obviously you can't see much over there.
Right.
And then actually if you go to 314, just this one photo, because the person, I don't know if you can see that pile right here. There's a
Right.
pile here. She mentions that in here, and I actually told her about that because when I spoke to the property owner here, he said, oh, if you go out there now, you can see there's a sandbar out there. It's never been there before. So that actually, obviously it looks like sand, sediment, but it's actually got, larger material debris in there too. I mean, she says in her report too, it appears that there's that island of rocks and sediment in the pond may have come from the property directly across from it. I don't know where or whatnot, but I don't think that if that wouldn't be accumulating from a alluvial fan of sediment finds, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I don't know where that came from or, it's something we can kind of investigate a little bit more. I think it's, maybe has been there for a while, I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
I don't know.
I mean, this resident said he's been there for about 10 years and, wasn't there when he moved there, so, but it's gradually been filling in from what he's been saying, so.
Well, pretty soon I'll be able to walk across.
So, that's all we got. I mean, and didn't know what to expect exactly, but, we could probably go out here and kind of look at it if you felt the need. I don't know that there's anything obvious to go in and remove from this, but
I didn't get anything from it. Any comments, anybody?
Well, anything? I agree that some of that sediment that's in the pond would probably cause more of a problem to get in there and take it out than
Yeah.
it would be just to leave it. It'll be vegetated next spring.
We should try to mitigate the sources, though.
Oh,
So we're not
yeah.
adding more.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Oh, that's huge. I mean, all that exposed soil
Yeah.
on where we went, and it was all frozen then, but
Yeah.
Right.
that never should have been left, that much exposed soil.
So we'll continue to monitor it,
Okay,
all right?
yep.
What's next? Now, we don't have, 6:15 is,
Well,
Need to,
right, so they asked for continuation. I told them this was a meeting date. I checked in with them last week. They weren't sure that they still need to have an RDA. They were gonna discuss the representative and the property owner. I talked to them a little bit about it. I have not heard from them since my conversation, so we do not have a request for a continuation. I think that, I mean, we've been continuing this since December. It is only an RDA. I think because we don't have a request for continuation, we need to make a determination of what's in front of us. So what we have, just to refresh you, remember, we did a site visit. This is a little over 3-acre clearing that's proposed based off the information presented to us. We have an engineered plan that shows that this area is outside of our 200-foot buffer zone. We did ask at that site visit just to see, because we have the zoning bylaw with the 8% slope at 500 feet. We did ask to see what the slopes were, because we weren't sure if it would be subject to that. I have not received anything from them on that.
well, you can see right from that map, that's pretty clear.
Right, it's really steep here, but I'm not sure, right, would this be subject?
well, where they're asking for a continuation, and they're not here.
They asked for a continuation to this meeting. They did not ask for one after this meeting. So they didn't say they were coming, they didn't ask for continuation.
So, do you want to give them a continuation?
I don't think we can give them one. I think they have
See,
to
they have to ask
request
for it.
Since they're not here to ask for it.
I don't
I mean,
think,
I'm gonna recommend that we make a determination off what we have. I mean, it is only an RDA. And
Yeah.
that way, we can't be, you know,
I'm hesitant to approve anything without the applicant in front of me.
Well, we're just saying, what,
right, so here's what we're determining, we're asked if, you know, they're subject to Wetlands Protection Act and our bylaws.
Right.
So that's all we're not giving
And
approval
we
with
don't know if there's
conditions.
500, what the slope is off the back.
Correct, yep. So I guess what my recommendation would be is that we issue a positive 2B. We're not approving any resource area delineations with
Yeah.
this. A positive 6, the work, let me pull it out to make sure I say that one right. So a positive 6, the following area and/or work, if any, is subject to a municipal ordinance or bylaw, but not subject to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. And what I was gonna say here is work may be subject to the Town of Sturbridge zoning bylaw, section 4.04. The existing slope of the work area shall be provided to the Conservation Commission to determine if that zoning bylaw is applicable. That way, we're saying we don't know. If you can provide us that information, we can determine that for you.
yep,
Okay.
And then we go to the negative section. It would be a negative number 4. The work described in the request is not within an area subject to protection under the Act, including the buffer zone, so that's the Wetlands Protection Act. Therefore, they don't need to file a notice of intent unless said work alters an area subject to the protection of the Act. And then it would also be a negative number 6. The area or work described in the request is not subject to review and approval by us under the Sturbridge wetland bylaw, because they're outside of the 200-foot buffer zone. I mean, the plan, I can zoom in, this is 250 feet, and our resource area is down here. I mean,
Yeah.
I can pull up, they overlaid it on an aerial photo too. Do you want to see it on there?
No, I don't think there's any need
I
to do.
think I've seen it on
Yeah.
there.
yeah,
Okay.
so when it's two positives, what was the first positive you said?
2B.
To be,
Yep.
to be or not to be?
Well, right, that's, because we have multiple local bylaws,
Right.
we don't know that that one isn't, I guess I can clarify that in my letter as well. But we don't know if it's subject to that zoning bylaw based off the information we were provided.
Right.
And we said that originally, we just haven't.
One question I have, though, if from the edge of from their limit of work, if you have more than an 8% slope all the way to the resource area, I mean, are we still concerned about that, even though we're a long ways away? It's,
Well, I think we'd have to look at what the zoning bylaw says, and I think it's that they're working in an area with an 8% slope. I think that's, I can,
I think that's the way that the bylaw is written, and, because we use that a few times for roads, when I was on the planning board.
Now,
And
because
this,
it's-
because it levels off, I don't think they're actually working in the 8% slope there.
yeah.
okay.
Oh, I can ask Glenn. Hi, Glenn.
Oh, good day.
How are you?
Good, yourself?
Good. Well, so we're talking about the RDA for 30 Lad Road, because I didn't hear back from you, so we had it continued to this meeting.
And then we with Drew, I believe,
Well,
Friday.
I didn't receive anything from anybody with a withdrawal. I mean, we spoke on the phone.
Yeah, the office, I believe they sent the withdrawal. He wants to withdraw, because we did talk that was the possibility of withdrawal.
Yep.
Because we're gonna add the rest of the acreage in. So he's got 22 acres on that RDA. The forest management plan is for the whole 92. And so it makes sense to him to bring it all together within a month.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
So, all right, so you guys are withdrawing this?
Drawing.
So there's no work taking place.
Okay.
And we'll come back in front of you with a full package for the whole site.
Okay, so I'll just issue a letter saying that, you know, we had
And I'm gonna call my
discussion.
office when I leave here and ask them
Okay.
to look at the thing first thing in the morning to see where that email went, because it was hit, you know, it happened. I sent him the email to say, does this look good for you? If so, send it
Yeah.
out. And he said, nice and concise. I thought he sent it out. That's exactly what happened.
Okay.
I didn't wanna send it out
Okay.
because it was in his hands. Friday, I sent it to him. We already have it drafted.
Okay.
I'll get it out to you tomorrow.
Okay.
I figured he
Okay.
didn't read his full email. He was supposed to send it.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'll just issue a letter saying that this has been withdrawn. It's our
Withdrawn.
understanding that
After
a
you
new
get-
one.
Confirmation of that tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor of that?
That sounds good, yeah.
Great.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
And you're going to write that letter after you get that email, right?
Well, you'll have the email first thing in the
Yep.
morning.
Yeah, but, well, he was here and told us that during the public hearing time, so I think that,
Covered.
yeah,
Okay.
All right.
right, but I will get
Let
that.
me shut this down.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, now we are at 6:30,
Wow, it's amazing.
right on time. Request for an amendment to existing order of conditions file, DEP file number 300-953, 272 Big Allen, represented by EBT Environmental Consultants, Inc., for the applicant, Justin Howard, for the approval of revisions to be permit. Okay?
Thank you. I'd like to revise that, also represented by Mr. Leonard Jalbert also.
Oh, my God. I don't know if we can do that. That's a substantive revision.
Might have to continue for 2 weeks on it.
So, before we start, what I'd like to do is,
Please introduce yourself.
Leonard Jalbert from Jalbert Engineering. Before Lynn gets started, I'd like to pass out to the board actually a tally sheet, which is 21 different items on the drawing itself, and then the copies of the plans in color. The tally sheet mainly is for you to take as individuals. To start, we're going to go from 1 to 21 inclusively. You can at least check and then write notes on what you think it is, because it is pretty comprehensive. So I'd like to do that first.
Rebecca, I think you have that on
Yes, yeah, I made copies for him, but
Okay, so you.
Thank you, Lenny.
have Lenny do my job for me.
Yeah.
I made them too. You got them also?
Thanks, Lon.
Thank you.
I don't want any more.
Here's 3 copies of the colored prints. These are the colored ones?
I do have them, yeah.
Okay, you want to read any?
unless they want them.
I'm gonna give,
I'll take a look at one, yeah.
Yeah, I need more paper, Lenny. There you go. Well, maybe this is the final one, and I'll throw all the other ones away.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
I do like the presentation, Lynn. That's big bullet.
Oh, hey, we got numbers.
Oh, nice. Oh, Lenny. Oh, Lenny. Did you do this? Numbering and everything? This is awesome. Lenny for president.
Notice he's not saying you
Glenn did ask Glenn to put the numbers on it because it was so, we put together the letter, it looked like there was a lot of items that Glenn put on the plan, which we worked together to put on the plan, and Rebecca worked with us to discuss it. We had pre-planned meeting to discuss issues, and then all together with Glenn and EBT, and we put together the numbers, and then it became so, there was such a question about how many things were going on when we first discussed all this, that we said, in order to follow the plan, let's number them so that we could easily follow it. In fact, I numbered in a clockwise direction, starting at the dock, so that if we were to follow it, it generally runs around from one all the way back
Well, let's
to
get
21.
started because we've got another meeting at 6.
Let's go, Glenn.
Generating a lot of
Let's
paper.
do it.
See, if nothing else, this project
You
is
gotta,
generating a lot of
solve
paper.
one of these a minute.
Or less. Leave that.
Oh, yep, I think you already gave this to me, but thank you,
I-
yeah, or copy of it, yeah.
Yes, you would-
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. You can choose to, we'll just, all right, I'll go over it.
Please
So,
introduce
yeah,
yourself. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you,
to the-
Glenn Kowalski from EBT Environmental
Thank you.
Consultants. And this is the amendment that we've been discussing for, I don't know, 6 or 8 months.
6 or 8 years.
It's been a while, right, since last year.
That's not on this list. Let's go to number 1.
Okay, let's go. Chapter 91 was completed, and here it goes. Number 1, where is no? Okay, amend, there was some veneer facing of the concrete. Rebecca had discussed it. Mr. Howard had originally proposed to do veneering so that it wouldn't look like concrete. Anyway, so we do have concrete veneer on the face. And it's a minor change, just so it doesn't look like concrete. So 1, 2, remove all fill in the 25-foot buffer in that hash-marked area. That was, there was lawn area in there. We want to bring it back to the 25 as a point of mitigation. Back down to the original topsoil, make sure that we have 4 to 6 inches of topsoil after we remove the fill.
What do you estimate you'll be removing?
The volume of material,
Yes.
we didn't ask Lenny to give us that volume. We can give you a volume. We can write a note on this plan and get a volume for
I think
you.
we need a volume on that.
All right. Thank you, Len.
I think that was asked at the meeting.
Well, we have other areas that we did put volume, but this area,
No, maybe it was a different area.
yeah, I believe it was, but we'll volume that area too. So, and then it's replanting on number 3. It's the native species that are still left on that northern side. So we just went with the low bush, the sweet pepper. That's the third one is actually which are familiar, service berries, and then is red maples. So that gives us a density.
What's the height on the red maples you're gonna put in there?
We generally buying all the stuff from New England wetland plants and not from any other sources, so they're only giving us 3 to 5 footers. If the commission wants bigger stuff, then we'll go somewhere else for the red maples. 1-inch caliper if it is a decent 7 or 8 foot bush. So if there was 1-inch caliper requirement, we'll have to go to Bigelow or somewhere else. But New England wetland plants is where we've been getting all our stock, but they all have all small stuff. But it's all viable, it grows well, and we weren't gonna touch it, just let it continue to grow. Yes, it takes a little while longer, but after 2 years, we're at 7 or 8 feet, and they're fair growing, good root balls, great root balls. We don't have any die off. 98% of what I plant from these people lives, and I follow it, because I got quite a few replications going. So,
Pretty
we either go
accurate
New England
number,
wetland
huh?
plants or we get something bigger.
Only 2 out of 100, huh?
Yes, in fact, that would be, And we're planting 36 at a time, 46, all kinds of numbers as far as planting. They just got root stock, great root stock. They're already potted, so they've been growing in pots, and as long as we have good organic around them and sufficient moisture, we have not been losing plants from New England wetland plants.
Any questions we're on to number 5?
4.
4?
4 is another planting that's adjacent to that wall. It's a continuation of the native plantings around from the lake. That area in between, the area 2 and area 4 is native in there. Along that edge, we're just continuing with native. There was an A and a B on the plan that didn't have to do with amendment, it had to do with fixing things. That's why you're seeing A. There was a question about daylighting. We want to make sure that emergency overflow for the Caltech unit can daylight so that it just doesn't back up. So it didn't appear to be daylighted when we walked the site. We want to make sure that we have a discharge point. You want me to continue on?
Yep, keep going.
Okay, just more green emerald arborvitaes along one of the decks. Is that a deck, sir?
Yes.
Deck. And then 4, 5.
What's the height on those?
Those are landscape, good height. What is he generally doing, like 7, 6, 7? 6, 7 feet. Are they in right now?
They're not, I stopped, they were still potted, sitting in front of the thing, I've been trying to.
6 to 7 feet, so he knows the height because he's already
Yeah.
seen. Right, okay. So, 7 is a new item
Number 6?
6? 5, 6, 6, where's 6? Oh, yes, we have a letter in the application from the abutter. Mr. Howard did get that. What's their last name? So I don't have to look at it.
Morals
Morals?
and grass, yeah, I got a signed copy to clean that catch basin.
Clean it, hydro suck it out, and to make sure that it's ready for receiving additional, because it is filled, nobody's been maintaining it.
Okay.
We want to make sure it's available. Rebecca was the one that asked, oh, it's right on the plan, Morels, I'm sorry. Rebecca asked, I believe it was Rebecca, could have been the commission asked for us to get a letter. It was Rebecca, because it's somebody else's property.
Right, can we talk about that too? Because I think we had asked McGrath, like, as part of their project, probably the same thing.
To clean it out?
Yeah, I think, when I talked to Maura and Ian about it, so can we coordinate efforts on that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll talk to you.
Well, yeah,
But it's been done anyway, right?
to get it
You have a
done.
letter, so,
Yes.
all right, then let's go on.
Young child, young children, boys, one boy, young boy. We were going with the crushed stone. That 7 is a free throw line is 15 feet out from the basket. And it's 12 feet wide. So we worked to we're asking for this area right at the limit of right at the 200-foot buffer to put in an area so we can play basketball, so we can shoot hoop. The driveway is pavers, it's not level like a piece of asphalt. We are going with all crushed stone, as you can see, but the apron that's out there, which is number 8, 3 inches, 3/4 inch stone, the whole thing, and tilting it all back. So out of that whole area, an infiltration along the trench, which is 30 inches by 12 inches with crushed stone, we feel that we have sufficient infiltration to accept this, hopefully, permittable 12 by 15 basketball court. It's not a court, it's just an area to bounce the ball and throw into the hoop. The hoop would be at the flow end, so that it would hit the bank, and there's a slope rising up, and not gonna lose the hoop. And of course, there's those other provisions.
Second,
That's it.
you're saying crushed stone, or are you talking stone dust?
No, all of this is stone, that matrix that is around it. This would be
The
asphalt.
rugged kids?
This is asphalt.
Yeah, so he's talking about this being
It's an asphalt.
Yeah.
and then this.
Oh, that's gonna be
stone.
asphalt?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I was gonna say, I thought you had
I'm
the
sorry.
crushed stone court.
So yes, that would be asphalt.
Okay,
And the hoop would be here. And that's a free throw line width. And that's the general dimensions, 10 by 15 of that area that, I don't play basketball, that you would, between where you stand on either side and the guy throws up on a hoop. And other people watching TV going like, that kid doesn't know anything about basketball. But that's what he was asking for because for his child, so that he can shoot hoop.
Is that on your property?
Yes. His property ends, this is the property end. So this is a roadway, a private road, they call it. It's a private road going through your property.
Yes.
Right, so he owns that
Yep,
too.
no, I just asked a question.
The parking area is the same size as what it is now.
We're not changing the size of it at all. Original plan did have it wider, the one that Glenn Colburn had reviewed prior to you buying the old order. We're looking to just keep it that size, make sure we have sufficient depth of aggregate to infiltrate in this channel 30 by 12, to infiltrate additionally during the summer, and then the flow. Also making sure that these arrows are aiming in, so there's no backup of water onto the road, which was a Glenn Colburn issue with the icing on the road.
And it goes down to the
Catch
catch
basin.
basin number 6.
Yes, and we'll suck that out as it's filled with sand at this point.
Right, I think we saw that.
Okay.
Okay.
What are you on, number 9?
8, 9, so we ended up hitting,
10.
yes, we hit 9, and we're at 10. And, Mr. Howard, those are still sitting on the side?
Those are not there yet, no, we waited on those.
It's the same as the other ones on the other
Same as
side,
on
if I
the
could
other
ask for the
side,
chairman?
Yep.
Same size. 15 of them. If we
Oh,
move-
15, not 14?
Am I reading it right? Proposed 15 emerald green. Where's the
It says
15?
14 on mine.
It says 15 on the plan and 14 on this extra sheet, so.
We'll go 15.
It's 15.
Doesn't matter.
We'll correct that.
We just have to tell
No, we'll just write it in, we don't want any more paper.
It is definitely 15.
We don't want to request a
2,
new plan.
4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15.
Well, we're on number 11, we gotta keep moving here.
I know, I just want to make sure we had the right number.
Yeah.
It actually symbolizes 15, so 11, 12. Thank you. Proposed winter gem boxwood planting. Another planting,
Did we talk
We
about the
skipped over
leaching pit?
The leaching pit, yeah.
the
Tied to-
leaching pit, 11, that was 10, I'm sorry. 11, thank you. The leaching pit, which wasn't in, or it's to match the one
Where's
on the
that?
other side. It is for our roof runoff.
Right there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a bioretention area right here.
Roof, right, so more infiltration. There is the flow down the side of the driveway. We're gonna be decreasing that substantially by not allowing the roadway runoff to come onto the brick driveway, which is up here, and then down through here. That'll be now onto that, into that infiltration and the swale that's across the street. So we'll have much less water, but there is still flow going down on the side of the house on the south side, so we have a bioretention area up at the top. We did give you what the plants and the depth of the soil would be under the upper left of the plan. And that's a takeoff from
Bring
Mr.
that
Java
back
put it
down.
on the plan,
Back
but it
so-
gives us
Where-
crushed stone.
Where is it?
Right here.
Yeah. Okay.
It's catching everything coming down this way.
Yeah.
Is this gonna be lawn?
Yes.
Okay.
We're on the boxwoods now? Or-
Yep, 12.
It's,
Anybody have a question on that?
It's not, the one thing I said to the landscaper, Mark Levine, was anything we put out there for plantings that aren't native cannot be invasive, cannot seed out into the environment. This is a plant that doesn't seed out, and the same is gonna go with one of our other, number 14.
Good. So now we're at the bioretention area.
That was the
is-
13, right, and then 14, proposed slope planting. I think we talked about the bio.
Right, we
Those
did.
two.
Right,
but
so proposed slope planting on 14, ornamental, non-invasive, I had him put that note in there, trees and shrubs, and you have a planting list in your package of what would go in there, and they're all non-invasive species. It's from Mr. Levine, Mark, and it's dated March 14th. And
Okay.
we've looked at all of them, the yew and hydrangea, plants that won't get going in the environment. Mums and there's annuals and perennials on that exhibit number 6A. So that's just ornamental planting.
All right,
Want me to continue?
Continue.
Proposed amendment to allow wall to remain. That wall is outside the 50. It's halfway between the 50 and the 100. And you've seen it, you walked on it, I believe. We're asking that we are allowed to keep that wall, retaining wall. That's something for you to think about, but if you choose, but that's a request to amend. 16, if I move on, if you're set, remove existing,
comments on 15?
here it is right here.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
no, I understand.
That's
Yeah.
25,
No
50,
comments, all right,
100.
then, let's go on.
Okay, so it's got 16, 15. 16 would be removing those stone boulders. And also any fill that's in that area, that's a fill, part of that's fill. That would go along with note number 17, to pull the boulders out and remove any fill in that area and ensure there's 4 to 6 inches of topsoil. We have notes on that. And then there's the planting, similar to the planting across in the
This says
northern-
remove the riprap.
right here. That's this.
Is there a little bit of a difference between riprap and boulders?
No, the riprap can be 6-inch, minus boulders can be,
So
10
what he
inches.
did is to kind of keep the, lay off Rosciolas, he put boulders in the side. So the thing is, we take the shed out, the pad out, all that stuff, and then remove this. So this would kind of be straight down the line. And then obviously we have fill coming out of there and all that stuff. So this would be a straight line down the property line, with the bioretention, a little bit grass, and then the plantings in there. So this is all coming out.
But he's talking about 16.
Yeah, so Mark, had, again, to keep some of this fill back, again, we plan on taking out,
Yeah.
he built a little, kind of just stones into the side to hold it
Yeah.
back. So that'll be all coming out, and this wall, or this little kind of stone thing will kind of run just along here, that's it.
well,
Okay.
that'd be amendment, because that's something that's the first time I heard about.
Oh,
So
I'm
the
sorry, no,
commission-
but this is all coming out, sorry, Glenn, so, yeah, this is just be flat
Natural.
with that, once it, yes,
Well,
once the
that-
shed.
Unless there's some change,
No.
there was no change.
No changes.
Okay, thank you. Because because he was, the way he just talked, with this wall would continue on down.
Okay.
We don't plan on doing it.
You happy with this, Becky?
That would be
I think it's
lawn.
Yeah,
This
okay.
is gonna be lawn, that's gonna be lawn, that patio's coming out, that shed's coming out that you don't want in the 50. Those boulders or riprap, whatever you might call them, they're about 10 to 12 inches in diameter.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So some people call anything in a 12-inch range, they might call it armoring. But it's a boulder retaining wall holding up a slope. We're proposing to take it out, because the original plan that Glenn Colburn had looked at, it had this as natural vegetation coming up right to here. And that's why that's why this line right here, it goes above the 25, because the previous plan you approved, that's expired, did have this as natural vegetation. So I said, on an earlier meeting, we would turn this all back to natural vegetation.
Okay, we're starting to get into history. We're gonna get into a lot of trouble if we do that.
Okay.
Let's keep moving. 17.
17, that's the planting in that natural revegetating that area. The area directly down gradient to the west is similar in species to, it is the same species as what we're seeing on the, in 17.
Right.
And we're replanting that, 4 to 6 inches minimum topsoil. Again, we can calculate the fill amount coming out. I'm gonna put volume on this plan again for volume of material, so that you'll know that number also. It would come out, we'd ensure that we're back down to the, as much as we can, to the 4 to 6, or understanding if the fill is a certain color, we're gonna see what the color is underneath it, and that's what we're going down to.
Okay.
The
Right, so
planting,
we'll
on-
under- So, but ensure, once we get down there, that we have 4 to 6, so there's a good topsoil in there. So then, so that removes.
what's the distance between red maples normally?
The spacing of the,
Spacing of a red maple? Yeah, Yeah.
my general woodland plantings go from 7 to 10-foot spacing in the woods when you're counting plants. You're at about a 7 to 10-foot spacing between
Yeah.
bushes and trees, and that's generally what I space out. There's been some cases where I go 10-foot spacing on a reforestation.
Okay,
But 7 feet is my replications go 7, I normally go 7. Some people want them 5.
all right.
7 is a good density. If you leave it alone, it grows back and they thicken up and you end up having what a natural forest would look like. So 17, 18, that was that short wall directly upgrading. We were gonna remove soil, we're gonna do another bio retention area. It is sitting on top of the existing concrete cantilever block or the counterweight for the, so this is not sitting on ground, it's on top of the concrete, which is the counterweight. And directly upgrading would this be this hollow for all the lawn water to go towards, infiltrate into that area.
How deep would that be?
To 184 square feet. Len, did we come up with, here it is right in here.
Right there, it's roughly 36 inches deep. And then it's a bioretention area, which is the diagram to the upper left-hand portion of the paper.
A total depth of 36 of that material. What's, I think there it is right there, 12 inches. If you look at the upper triangle on the upper right of that bioretention, it will give you, this is 36 inches of material, but right here is 12 inches, the depth of the hole.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Moving on, we're on,
That's 9, okay, so if we went from the request 20, the bioretention is 19, we just discussed, and so back to 21. We are removing, well, 20, remove mulch planting bed.
Yeah.
That would go back, that's the only area that we didn't
what are you gonna
specify
do there?
what we were gonna do with that planting bed.
Now, what are you gonna put there?
My thought on that, and this just came up a couple of days ago, because I think it's the only area that we haven't specified on what we're doing, would be to plant it with a native, something similar to northern bayberry, which is a short native bush. It's facultative. It has a good fragrance to it. But again, it's native to your ponds, your lakes. It's all around Sturbridge. It's around southern New England. It's in his town.
When you pull the
The mulch,
mulch off of there, so that's what you're calling it, what are you gonna have?
we're gonna
You're gonna be
ensure
down to
that
almost bone, aren't you?
bone.
Yeah, stone.
Oh,
bone.
stone. I thought you said bone.
I did.
We're gonna ensure that there's 4 to 6 inches of topsoil in every area that we remove soil. So our final grade on everything.
So you're gonna remove the soil, and then you're gonna put 4 to 6 inches back.
Topsoil, rich soil,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna be planting with native bushes. So that'll be another native planting. So if I was to add to 20, it would be native planting. It's a small square footage, but we can, along with the volumes on each side of the north and south side of the site, we can tell you how many plants we would put in that native planting area. And
So
then
you
the
can, you can put that, yeah.
the 21 was just that walkway to the existing deck.
All right,
That's
21,
21, a walkway strip to the existing deck.
Lawn.
Yeah.
Lawn, it's lawn. It's the only lawn area that we're asking for that would be within the 25-foot zone. And then there's 22.
where's 22?
Oh, no, we're down to A and B
No, this
now.
21 was it. So then there's an A and a B. The A we discussed, which is the daylighting, and the B is the removal of the shed. And the removal of the concrete pad, that's all in one. Four to 6 inches of topsoil to be, to ensure that it's,
All right,
We
is
can-
that your presentation?
that's what we're proposing to do.
Becky? What do you have?
My comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I mean, I
What'd you
think they've
think of
done a really good job to address the concerns. Like I said, we did meet to talk about these things. I guess, you know, early on, kind of my biggest concern was the shift with the dock and kind of going back and reviewing the minutes and watching that meeting and looking at the permit when the amendment came through. It just wasn't really clear when it was permitted, so I think it wasn't clear for everyone involved that it would change and be on the shore. So with that being said, I mean, I guess I, you know, wouldn't recommend that be moved or anything at this time, and work towards maybe doing something on the face of that kind of creates more natural look and some little nooks and crannies in there. So I guess with whatever, maybe we look at what gets chosen to be put on there, so it looks kind of, has those kind of nooks and crannies and stuff in there. So I think with that being said, I wouldn't, you know, at this time recommend removing that based off of, you know, when that came, it just wasn't really clear on either end. But I think too, and I think, you know, it's learned that, I mean, anything that's a change, and especially when you're kind of impacting a resource area, and I think your contractor knows now too, is to really kind of just keep checking in and making sure that, okay, I just want to make sure that we're on the right path here. But I think moving forward, when they, you know, if they vote to approve this and issue another amendment, is that just make sure we really understand the conditions in the permit and kind of keep in touch and have the pre-construction meeting and kind of go over the different aspects as they come up, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Paul, what do you think?
No, I think they did a good job. They spent they generated an awful lot of paper. But I think they've answered all of our questions, and I think that I assume this is the final plan, and I think it's a good plan. I think they've done whatever we've asked them to do. So I think it's fine. I have no problems with this.
Steve?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Paul. I'm not really clear exactly what's going to happen on this dock, the face of that. I'm assuming you're going to show us some pictures or,
Yeah, I can send pictures to Becky, yeah. It's a stone veneer, real stone veneer.
on the face, so
on the
it's
face
concrete.
So it kind of blends in.
Okay,
I think that
that's cool. That's cool. My kids would like that. Hey, Dad, man. Amend to allow concrete cap over existing stones at shoreline.
that,
Wall.
What that's different.
that actually, the word cap, I'm not sure how it got lost. It's actually, it's not a concrete cap, it's the stone veneer on the concrete, period.
On the existing
On the
concrete.
existing
Oh.
concrete, there's no more concrete going in, it's a stone veneer on the existing face of the concrete. I did not propose amendment.
Okay.
The wording was not correct.
Okay. I'm no longer confused.
Meant to allow
I'm good.
stone veneer on existing concrete
Stephen?
face.
Okay, thanks.
I appreciate, too,
Yeah.
all the work you put into this. One comment I have, though, about these maple plantings, one thing I'm concerned is that the maples are gonna end up here, here, and here. Well, I guess it wouldn't be here, because there's already a tree there, but I can't tell where they're gonna be placed. So I'd like to see those spread out, as much as possible, in both areas. I don't wanna see them concentrated at the property
Yeah,
boundary.
yeah.
Fine, right.
Yeah.
And I can add a condition that when it's time to do the plantings, that they work with me, go out and kind of figure out where they get put in.
That'd be great. I think some of the questions I had already got answered. So there won't be any additional plantings in here, it's just all gonna be lawn?
In the grass, yes.
Okay.
Right.
We were talking about this area here, I think, you're asking to change, so this is gonna be a path, so that won't be planted, but I'm just wondering if this maybe should be incorporated into that
Yeah,
bioretention area?
Roll the bioretention over to include that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Be less
Doesn't
choppy.
doesn't hurt for it to be a little bit bigger, so, in my opinion, I don't know.
No, that's not a bad idea.
Fine by me.
We could expand it up and just round it.
Yeah.
tip out. I'll put a note on.
Okay.
We'll bump that out to close to the edge of the lawn going down.
Okay, and yeah, I have no problem with the tennis, or the basketball court.
Thank you.
And, yeah, the walls at this point, I'm not happy that they were put in, but would be more damage to remove them at this point, so, I'm good.
And I am too, I'm good. I have nothing, I think,
A lot of work, guys.
Lanny, this is the most readable plan that, I like the size of it. You know those plans you give us?
You're forgiven. Past transgressions.
I just want to ask a question before you approve. So do you want to see the bioretention area revised on a plan, which will go with the permit?
Yeah, I hate to
Yeah.
make you do that, but I would like to see that,
We
just
can-
those minor
What I'm looking at
changes.
splitting is this area, that's the walkway, but I'm gonna split this in half, that, between that line and that line, I'm gonna bring that line coming around, so
Yeah.
this thing
Okay.
will come out.
I'm not interested in waiting for it to approve it.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
think.
right, no, I think you can approve it, but I think when the doc came in, it wasn't clear we wanted a revised plan, and,
Right.
no, we never got one, so.
Okay.
If I could, Mr. Jalbert, how long would it take us to just bump that line out and maybe give the two volumes?
I think personally, at this point, it's irrelevant, because of the fact that the town requires that I do an as-built plan at the
Yeah.
end, and the as-built plan will reflect what you do.
No, I don't think it's irrelevant. I think we went off the board with the irrelevant. No,
We've got one little section.
we need to get something to Becky.
You
Well-
want to move the line, I'll move the line.
Yeah.
We're just, I already, I sketched it on here, how I would,
Yeah.
if I could.
I'm
Yeah,
fine
we-
with approving it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we are gonna approve it.
Right, I agree, we can approve
You're
it
gonna change the
tonight, yeah.
line. We don't wanna get into a discussion. We don't do line work.
But this would be the line.
What?
This is
Okay,
what I'm gonna give
good,
the
all
line.
right.
Okay.
So where did that go? I'm just gonna bump that halfway out
Okay,
like that.
all right.
That's all I got.
Right, okay.
That sounds good.
Yep.
Fine.
Steve, can you,
Any comments from the?
any comments from the audience?
Let's get this party started.
Yeah, that's what I say.
6:20.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing?
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor of closing the public hearing? Okay.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, Becky, very
Okay.
much. Rebecca.
We need to vote
Yep.
We need to
still.
vote, so wait a minute.
Oh, I know. Wait a minute.
We hope there's no last minute changing of the minds. Okay, I move that we accept the amendments to the existing order of conditions, DEP file number 300-953, as stated, with the few changes that we talked about, and you can put those in, Becky.
I second.
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you for your time,
Yeah.
Commissioner.
I just want to add too that we did issue an enforcement order, so I think that we should provide some comment, a letter, saying that we've worked to resolve that enforcement order with the implementation of this plan. So I think that would be the, we could-
Is that the lift of the enforcement? Or you'll lift it at the very end?
right, I think we would wait until, we sign off on the orders of conditions and that would, but I think we'll provide some correspondence that you've worked to address that. So,
Great.
and provide that to DP, so.
And to look at the,
The one thing
Make
he
sure
said at
that
the
it,
beginning
you
too
know,
is
at the end
erosion
of the
controls will
project,
all be revamped
issue the-
and no
Right.
plans prior to any work.
sounds good.
Yeah, get that basketball court up so Ginny can take some shots when she goes by.
Right. All right.
Nice follow-through.
All right, we are now at 6:45. Notice of intent, DEP number 300-1030, continuation from March 19th, 2019, 268 Big Alum, demolition of an existing house, construction of a new single-family house, and associated work.
Okay.
Green Hill Engineering here?
No, Mark wasn't gonna be able to make it. They did bring the revised plan in today, which did address the comments. The only thing that they didn't do is they didn't move the well, and the reasoning for that is because the Board of Health has setbacks from roads. I think it's like 25 feet, and then there's setbacks from property lines, et cetera, so they just decided that they would keep it where it was. And because it wasn't a pressing issue for us, it was more of, if you can move it, it would be better.
Right.
So we do have on the front here, We have this earth and vegetated berm shown here, which is what Dave had requested. And then we also have the other item, he didn't do like a detail on the plan for that, but it does show that the driveway will be sloped. The grade, you see the grade, the arrows pointing
Yeah.
that way, that the grade will go that way for the driveway. So those were the three things from the last meeting, one being the well, which wasn't a requirement, so.
And that's a really tiny driveway, so.
Exactly, yep, yep. So those were the only things, and based off that, I didn't think that they needed to have him come here and represent him, though, so.
Right.
All right.
Do you want to open it for questions from the
I
audience?
can open it.
Oh, okay,
Want me to
sorry.
start with you? Questions?
I don't have any questions. I
No?
think that they added the two things on the plan that we were looking for. It would have been better if they could move the well because of the disturbance to get down there to
Yeah.
put it in, but.
Anything from the board members before I go to the audience?
Nope.
Anybody in the audience like to speak on this? Jenny?
Ginny Rossioli, a butter in the back on the hillside. I just want to be sure that you do add in the order of conditions that if there is to be any digging on the hillside, that you relook at that in the drainage and any issues. I think that's something Rebecca did
Yeah.
write down in the first meeting.
You mean on this backside
Yeah.
here?
Correct.
Yeah, the permit, any change of plan, anything within our buffer zone that's not on this approved, they need to come back to us.
Okay.
So we always have those general
Yeah,
conditions
and
in
you
there,
and I
too.
talked about the 22, 24-foot difference in elevation from the right-of-way down to the lake. There's no retaining walls that I'm aware of. Is that correct?
Correct, it's just the grading behind the house and some grading shown on
Right,
on the side
yeah.
here.
Okay.
And can I just say something? There's no work that's planned here, right? This is all
Correct.
existing, so, yeah.
Now, will they be asked to do an as-built?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, I would hope so, because I think that, just clarifies and keeps things consistent and will keep everybody on the same page.
Right.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Right. I don't have anything. Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second
Any discussion? All in favor of closing the public hearing? Okay. Do I have a motion on,
it. I move we accept the notice of intent, DEP 300-1030, on 268 Big Alum Road, with the conditions that we've discussed. So, then you'll put those
In
in.
this,
all right? Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor? Great. Thank you. All set. Where are we at next?
we can do our tree removal. I forget.
Well,
Celeste?
DOT's here, so
Yep. Well, we have a quick tree removal. Do you want
Oh,
to do
all
the
right.
tree removal?
W-
Okay.
how do we know when a tree removal is quick?
Well, just don't want to make her wait. I'm just going to pass these down. So Celeste, if you just want to come up and sit at the table,
No, I'd
I
like to
didn't know there were
have,
residents
yeah.
here for it.
I'd like to have 2 trees removed because they damaged my,
You need to identify
they
yourself.
damaged my roof.
Just introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Celeste Dupree, Cedar Lake in Sturbridge.
so I can fill in a little bit more too. So this is 42 Burgess School
Burgess
Road.
School Road.
Yep, we're on
Yes.
Cedar Lake. There's 2 pine trees, one very large pine tree and one smaller pine tree, I think, I don't have it in front of me, 12-inch.
Yep, 11-inch
Adjacent.
diameter.
Yep, okay. To that, there, the trees right here, the house is here. Last windstorm, a lot of branches came off the,
And fell on the roof.
yeah, the large
And
pine.
my
damaged the roof.
siding was all damaged too.
So Celeste's application came in on Thursday, and I was actually going out to this area with Tom Chamberlain for the Burgess Trail out there. So I had him stop by with me because we were going out there to look at the tree, and he did a write-up here about the tree. I have some photos too. Looking at it, not being an arborist, it looks like a very healthy tree, but you can see with Tom's report here, he kind of pointed out, I mean, so the big one has excessive limb growth. He says larger white pine trees usually have excessive decay in the center due to tree age, which is not visible. When a white pine has excessive tree limbs, these limbs interface with the tree stem, creates a weak spot in the wood cell structure, leads to tree failure. He actually sent me a photo. He had gone out to another site right before this one, where it was like a similar situation, size tree, where they did a lot of pruning. The top, right where the limbs were, broke off. So he was trying to explain these situations and how that happens. I'll do the photos for it. So it's a really large tree. That's the smaller one next to it.
That's unfortunate.
Trees are almost falling over already, huh, Beck?
Yeah.
Got a root
Let's see,
system.
I don't need to see those.
Wow.
Thought I had a picture of the shoreline here. Oh, that's why I'm going, sorry. So yeah, there's a good amount of, that one's a broken one, but there's a good amount of trees in the shoreline. You can kind of see here, she's got a lot of trees around the property as well. He does recommend replanting a tree and a mid-sized tree in this area.
Okay.
You agree to do that?
I agree to do that. I'm going to have Bonin come down and take the 2 trees down.
Okay.
Sounds
All in
good to me.
favor? Thank you.
Okay, now do I have to send a letter to my neighbors?
No, so for these tree removals, when it's a hazard tree, or a dead tree, we don't, require you to go through the full review process with like an RDA or notice of intent, which would require that. We'll issue you a letter, which you can have, and, with that, we'll state what we're allowing you to remove. Sometimes we ask that for certain projects, sometimes it's not necessary, we have like a little Sturbridge Conservation Commission sign you can put out, like a DEP file number sign, so that way they know that you've received approval from us. It's kind of just a heads up, so, okay? So
Okay.
I will send that letter out tomorrow for you.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good.
Bill, would you like it to be your turn?
Welcome back.
Hi, Bill.
Good evening.
Just want to hear Bill.
For the record, Bill Clardy from Mass DOT, District 3 in Worcester. I'm here at the invite of Becky.
You're one of her favorite people?
Yeah, I try.
You want to talk about Cedar Lake first?
Sure.
Okay.
Becky,
Well-
I sent you something today.
Yes.
It was I think we've had a couple of iterations on the swale design, and this is the latest revision.
Okay.
I think it I think it accomplishes the request for incorporating some check dams. If you'll, Becky, if you could go to the next sheet.
Yep. So, yeah, you can see that
there's
there's
a
spots in there where it kind of levels, right there.
You see the check dams there. Nice.
Yeah, and I think there's also there's also a cross section.
Yep. I'll have to zoom out and then zoom in here. Or I can leave it like that. So Bill, I looked at it quickly and I just didn't know, I mean, it doesn't seem like, sometimes you see it more like over on Route 20 here where they're doing it. Well, that one's a vegetated, but it's got more of a pooling area. I mean, would you think that it would be useful that it's kind of lower here? It doesn't look like it's, I mean, I don't know if it would hold kind of back and slow down the water too much where it's like the stone's right up to there.
Yeah, well, I think you're probably talking in terms of like, the freeboard of it, above the top of the stone. I think the intent of that, though, and I think it's kind of a dual purpose. You get the kind of a little bit of settling, but also because of the construction of that check dam, you get some infiltration as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it accomplishes a couple of things: infiltration as well as a little collection of sediment.
Do you want me to zoom into these or?
Anybody want to see one up close and personal?
Yeah,
or-
actually, do you mind zooming in
Yeah.
on that just a little bit? Just want to see. Okay. That's graded crushed stone. Okay. All right.
Steve?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good too. Paul?
Yeah, it's fine.
Becky? All set?
Yeah, I mean, that was my
Yeah.
only comment. So I just didn't know if that's gonna help really kind of slow
I think
down
that's
the
a
water
good
enough
comment.
there.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment.
Especially because I think, what is it? I mean, over 1,200 feet of,
Especially given the slope, to have that serve as an actual check dam. Well, there's a lot of them, but I don't think that, I don't have a problem with it being a little bit deeper on the upstream
Yeah,
side.
and there's actually two checks there.
one here
Yeah.
And one down here.
and one here.
And I also wanted to point out too, I asked our consultant to include the limits of the tree clearing. I had conversation with our contractor, and if you'll see, sort of the squiggly line there indicates the approximate clearing of
The limit of clearing, thank you.
of the trees there. A lot of the trees the root systems are underneath the existing concrete swale, which probably has contributed to the concrete swale failing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Not surprised.
Bill, do you guys have an idea when you might be able to implement this plan?
I do not. It looks like it would be appropriate that because if we look if it's at the end of the swale, the existing, I don't know if you can go back to sheet 1. I'm not sure. But the existing concrete, deteriorated concrete swale is partially underwater. So it does seem it would be appropriate that we probably would want to do this work during the next drawdown.
Do you think there's anything you guys could put in place to maybe help slow down the water before it gets to this area? I'm just trying to think if there's something, I mean, if that's gonna be a year away almost, what we can do maybe upstream. It's hard because I know it's paved all the way coming down, but I don't know if there's something maybe you guys had the situation before you could implement as a temporary measure.
Yeah, I guess I'd be a little reluctant. I mean, there's always we can install some sort of a temporary barrier, but I don't know, quite frankly, being out sort of in a fairly remote area, how long that would remain in place. I guess that would be my only reservation. I think we show there during construction, we show that and in fact, we had some success when we removed the material, was just to simply install a silt fence, which actually seemed to work pretty well during the dredging. I mean, I suppose a silt fence could be installed at the very end, but again, I think someone, again, being in that area, I don't know, I don't know that it would stay in place. I don't know, frankly.
I think it'd be blasted out of there
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
with
so
high
too.
flows.
yeah,
Becky,
we're-
are you thinking of, like, oftentimes at the outlet of a storm drain system, that there would be large stones or something where it levels off a little bit and there's stones to slow down?
You mean for the check dams coming down?
Right, well, not the check dam so much as you said something at the bottom. I thought that's what you said.
Right now, is it temporary or in the long-term plan?
Long-term, short-term, is that what you're talking about when you said something to slow down the?
Well, I mean, I think that they would here. I mean, I think they're showing the riprap crushed stone to go in there, but I guess I was thinking because it's such a long paved swale and there's so much water.
Right.
And, the velocity of that water coming down, that, right, if there was some more check dams and it kind of, maybe that would be helpful.
I was just wanting to be clear with what you were talking about at the bottom of that. And I would agree that something, and possibly because it's right at the water line, I can't remember what that, I think the slope is pretty steep right to the water line, so it might be
Yeah.
hard to back up a little bit and put in, you could picture the leveling out a little bit
Yep.
and enlarge,
But- Right, good.
not just
Like a
stones,
spreader.
but something embedded
Yeah.
to slow that down, and maybe some more check dams, if you've only got 2 check dams on that whole length, maybe a few more, I don't know, what's the distance between them?
You'll have to go back to that cross-section view. I think we have it listed by station number there.
I'm just thinking there's, specific guidelines, which I can't remember, for BMPs, like for a SWIP, where it'd say so many feet for a certain slope.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of this is still sort of kind of empirical, it's based on
Yeah.
other previous designs.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything really necessarily hard and fast.
might
But I have asked, just to sort of follow up on what you're asking, is I have asked BSC actually just to verify, because of the length of the paved waterway, that the stone, I mean, that's a typical item that we use, for stabilization at the end of pipe ends, and it's a fairly massive, stone. It's based on mass, so you can back in with the velocity what would be the expected velocity coming off of that paved waterway, and you can back in to make sure that the mass of the stone is significant enough so it doesn't move. So that's the calculation I've actually asked BSC to perform. I know it doesn't specifically address the spacing of the
Well,
check
so are
dams,
you
but-
talking, the stone and so on, are you talking about at the bottom of the slope? Or are you talking?
Well, the stone, no, the actual
talking
stone.
about this stuff right here,
within
right?
Oh,
the-
okay.
The actual stone within the
Yeah.
And that's
retrofitted
2
channel.
feet thick,
Yeah.
these large stones, so, yeah, that seems like
That's
it's
pretty
gonna
good.
hold a lot of
Yeah, you're right.
water.
Just the way it's drawn, it looks like it's filled in at the top of the surface.
Maybe to look at it again at a plan view, you could probably get if you go to another view, Becky, the larger plan view on that same sheet, you can see it.
Yeah.
You can kind of see the extent
Right.
of the stone.
Okay, I have a different view of it now, I like that.
Right, and I
Now-
think,
Oh,
sorry, I was gonna say, with getting the numbers from BSC, I think that'd be useful to know that this will function correctly, so
Right.
it'd be nice to see that.
So am I hearing that this is a next drawdown project?
If we wait until next drawdown, we can pretty much guarantee there's gonna be another pile of sediment there by next year, so.
I'm thinking we could go back in and remove that material at that
Right,
time.
right.
Seems appropriate.
So can we be assured that we're going to have this as a project as soon as the drawdown arrives?
There's always an issue of funding.
I know.
I've already put in that request. We have a singular drainage contract right now in the district. and we're trying to get additional resources if possible. So I guess it is, you know, as in anything, it's a matter of funding, but I have put in that request.
Maybe the fact it's an enforcement order might help them decide. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? What would help?
I'm sorry?
What would help to assure our funding?
Well, I mean, you can always, you know, I know I've had this discussion with the district highway director, so he understands it's important to the Lake Association and the Conservation Commission. So I have had that discussion with him.
I'm going to be with our local rep Friday night. Should I talk to her about it?
That's fine.
Does that work?
That works. Would be helpful to have that conversation.
Yeah. Steve, you're going to be there, right?
I'm not sure.
No?
If I am, I'll raise this issue. I got my kids wanting to come over. So I'll say, Ann Goby, my kids, my granddaughter.
All right. That's where we're at?
Yep.
I don't know, anything for
Yeah,
the
I mean, I guess I was
audience
just
like to
gonna-
speak?
We're at
Oh,
20.
go ahead. What? So that since the removal of the sediment out of the lake, I did reissue that letter. I have a copy if you want to see it, and just kind of ask for the different items on the enforcement order. So the swale was one of them. We did acknowledge that the sediment was removed out of there. I think, we have a little additional cleanup to do over on the eastern side. Remember, we had to put the stones in place to hold some of that back. Most of it's probably could be done by hand, so it'd be, eventually we'll have to get those erosion controls out of there and get those stones pulled back.
I was actually out there very recently. I think it was the same day that we met out on Route 20. I stopped by with the gentleman from the maintenance section there. It looked like that area was holding up well. That
Okay.
easterly bank.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
mean, we can look at it too, after spring and make that assessment and maybe decide to pull the bales out of there at that time. But right, we still have the bales and there's a wattle out there. But a lot of that crushed stone from the hillside had washed down there, which, right, maybe if it stays in place, it's not a big deal. It's kind of covering up one of the trees, so, a lot of vegetation is gonna grow there, which would be nice to have. But I guess maybe we can go back out and look at it after spring and see if anything's migrated, or think about if the bales are moved, will things
Well, then we should,
migrate.
if that's the case, then what we do, we'll have to issue a violation,
Okay,
go back through it, take a look at all the pictures,
okay.
set it up. And because, if we just go mute until next fall, the chances are greater that we will not get something done than,
Yeah. Yeah, let's keep on this.
And then on,
anything? Paul?
No, I mean, at this point in time, we don't have any idea if and when this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
If we're dependent upon the state deciding that it's important enough, who knows what's gonna, where it's gonna go, if anywhere.
Yeah. Anything to say?
I have great confidence in the board, but with all due respect, not a whole lot of confidence in the state planning.
Yeah.
So I think the lake might have to do that. I'm not comfortable saying that we have to wait another year for a maybe. If it was another year with a date for it to start, but a maybe just.
Yeah, no, that's a concern, yeah. But we are limited by drawdown.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so we
Of course.
really have to,
And if it was on the date of the drawdown, once it was down in the 5 weeks, and then they were gonna start, but what we're hearing is, well, we have to wait for the next drawdown, and then maybe we'll.
right,
do
no,
it.
no, I'm not disagreeing with you, with your point either.
well, I mean, you don't have to do it during drawdown, but there's a lot more protective measures you'd have to do potentially, to put in place in the water. So you,
I
I mean,
understand why
yeah.
it's better.
Yeah, no, no, I
understand
know.
why it's
But,
better.
yeah, I just want to be clear, we could do it, but it would be a lot more for Mass DOT to have to implement to do it now. So that is something that you could consider if you wanted it done sooner, we could condition the project to protect the resource area during work, but,
It would be putting in a silt curtain,
yeah.
which is not a big deal.
May I address DOT? Are we better off with funding if something that significant was suggested, that, I mean, it takes additional measures, but if you do it, if you don't wait for the drawdown, is the existing funding, we have a better chance of getting this done with existing funding instead of saying what happens in the fall?
I'm not really quite sure what you're asking, but,
I understand it's a more complex project if it's not done during drawdown, but where you say you have a pool of money available for these kinds of projects now, and it might not exist when the
Well,
drawdown comes. Do we have a better chance of getting it done now? even
no,
though
well,
it's complex?
actually, the maintenance contract has just come out. And, as I say, it's a singular maintenance contract. And we have a number of other locations that we need to address, similar circumstances. But I guess to your point is we've already started to put a lot of projects in the queue within that same contract. And it seems logical. I don't know how long this condition has existed out there. My suspicion it's probably been like that for some time. I don't know how much more deposition of material we're going to get if we wait and do this in the fall. I mean, that's something we could look at and monitor. But I think just from a logistical standpoint and trying to do less impact to the water, it just seems logical to do this during the next drawdown and just monitor, that location until that time.
Just to refresh my memory, what exactly is going to be done at that location when there's a drawdown or what?
Well, the problem is, again, is the existing concrete swale. I don't know, Becky, if you could go back.
I have some pictures, actually, if
Yeah,
it's kind of helpful to
it's-
look at those.
It's submerged. So essentially what we need to do is to,
I'm just gonna pass through some of these to get to the,
This might be a stupid question, but why is it submerged? If it was part of the original swale. I've been out there, but I
part of it
can't
here.
remember that part of
yeah,
it.
well, that was taken during the drawdown. So I guess the point is, the water is lower there.
Right, I think the water
So
level
we
is about
can,
here.
we're going to have to pull that away. We're gonna need to break that up and
Okay,
pull that away with a piece of heavy equipment.
okay, gotcha.
So I don't wanna be working in a standing water,
No, I understand.
pulling that away.
No, you're right, you're right.
How do we get in the queue with a specific date? What difference does it make that we're doing it in September or November? Why can't we get in the queue now?
Well, you are in the queue with a lot of other projects.
I don't know if that answers my question. But you don't do any projection as far as spending of money or anything like that, as far as
Well,
how you move forward.
that's really what we're doing now. We're trying to prioritize a number of projects.
Who
And
determines what the priorities are?
It's made within the district. We have a lot of locations that the same contract will be used. We have situations where we have flooding issues, we have freezing conditions, we have safety issues. So that type of work that's going to be done under this drainage contract.
So what do we need to do to make sure this happens? Get a hold of a congressman or?
No, I mean, I certainly think you keep the lines of communication open with your local reps. Again, I've had the discussion in the district. We have a lot of requests from a lot of towns to do work all throughout the district. So we have to, we're trying to prioritize. We have a number of projects that we're working under that same drainage contracts that are safety issues. So
But-
obviously, they take a bit of a, they take a
You're trying to
priority.
prioritize, but the question is, what are the criteria to determine where somebody sits in that pool of, I mean, if you got 50 projects and you got money for 40, then 10 are not gonna happen. So how do you make sure that you're among the 40 rather than among the 10? What does one have to do to make that happen?
Who sits in a room and decides?
We review this with our maintenance section, our district maintenance engineer. Again, I've had this discussion on not only this location, but other locations with the district highway director. So I have had the discussion at the highest levels within the district.
So there's really no guarantee that this is even gonna happen.
I'm trying to make the argument that we should try and do this project during the next drawdown. And we are trying to get additional resources, because we just don't have enough under the current drainage contract.
I mean, this is a great pond we're talking about, which should give it some priority. All right, we're gonna move this along back. We're bogged down here. We'll have to come up with a strategy.
Yep.
To move this along. Thank you, Bill, on that. What do you want to go to the next subject, Bill?
Yes,
Go ahead.
Quinnebog River and Route 20.
You know, Becky, we met out there last week with the new DPW director.
Yep.
Butch Jackson. And I think we've been out there now on a couple of occasions. I think a couple of commission members were out some time ago.
Yep.
And I think what we discovered is that there are a lot of old infrastructure out there that we can't really identify, whether it was part of the original mill complex, was it part of the original, probably the town drainage system. So I don't know that we've really identified specifically the origin of the structures that are out there, or how they were constructed, or what condition they're in. That section of Route 20 was constructed in 1926, and it doesn't look like there's been much added on since that time, at least in terms of Route 20. I believe that probably drainage from 148 also drains down through onto that same property. So I guess the takeaway is there's a lot of old infrastructure there that's not part of the Route 20 system.
But it's on state property, right?
No.
It doesn't go on?
Yes, there are some structures, I think there are some structures on state property.
Yeah, so
State layout
Yeah,
that may have been part of that original infrastructure.
right.
But a lot of the old structures are stone construction, the pipe.
Well, the one we're talking about is not stone construction.
No,
not-
it's a perforated
yeah.
pipe that looks to me as though it was used as there was a cart road that was there. It looks like there was a cart road there of some sort of drive, and it looks like that may have been installed as some sort of an under drain underneath that.
Hard to believe in looking at it that it isn't newer than 1926, which would make it almost 100 years old. It doesn't look 100 years old. I mean, you know,
No, that metal pipe is not 100 years old. My question, if I may, is that there's the storm drain catch basin on Route 20. And yes, there's a pipe. You can just look at right in line with that pipe. Comes to that crazy stone, probably 200 years old mess. Pipes coming in, probably from who knows where. But perfectly lined with, continuing with that, is this corrugated metal pipe. So I think that all the stonework and who knows where that stuff comes from is a red herring in this thing. It really doesn't make a lot of difference. You've got the catch basin, you line it up with that thing and a pipe coming out of it, and then there goes your corrugated pipe. I think worrying about all the rest of those stone channels and pipes and whatever those things are called, there's a concrete lid on a couple of them. I mean, to me, that is what's happening, and that was undercut, and soil washed away from that. You can see the alluvium down on the river, and a tree fell over. I mean, I make the argument that that is water coming off of the state road, in my opinion.
No, there's, I mean, there's no question there's drainage coming off of 20 that enters that system. But I think in terms of the total watershed, I think Route 20 probably represents a fairly small contribution.
And, you know, and that's conjecture, and let's fix what is clear
Yeah.
to me, and then worry about the conjecture. I don't know. I
In
mean,
addition, the state has responsibility for the road. We can't go in there and dig it up. So we're coming to you, you're destroying our river, and we need you to correct what you're doing.
Well, again, I don't think that, it just, to take a step back, that original infrastructure does not appear to be anything that was related to Route 20. It pre-existed Route 20. Now, I think there's town drainage that drains into those structures. There's Route 20 drainage that drains into those structures. But they're not on state property, and they most likely were not installed as part of any road work on Route 20. And I think at present, I think the pipe in particular that was of concern doesn't seem to be active. I think we can sort of agree to that, so the condition is that it's not deteriorating.
well, the storm drain, if I may, and I don't mean to interrupt you, is totally plugged when we were there.
Not
That,
active.
something happened since 1927. I don't think that storm drain was put in 1927, do you? The catch basin there, I mean, that's,
Which structure are we referring to now?
So there's a storm drain right here that's blocked. That's the one that we're talking about.
right.
That's
Right,
one.
there's actually two, but one's not shown on this plan.
Yeah.
You know, I just think that has to be something since 1927.
Well, the construction in the 20s, it looks like it was all concrete. In fact, you can even see, shows there, you've got some concrete pipe RCP. A lot of those structures that we looked at were stone structures, my suspicions pre-existed that work that was done in the 20s, because that work that was done was concrete pipe. And a lot of what we saw out there were these old stone
Right.
box.
Like a
Configurations.
covered culvert or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. No, I agree. I agree with you. That is complicating this issue. But I think the straight shot from that storm drain or catch basin is what I'm concerned
I
about.
mean, you're really talking about, you're saying on one hand that storm drain is inactive. It's not, no water is going through it.
It appears to be. I think probably what's happening is that whole, where they constructed that cart road or driveway, that was a filled area. So my suspicion is now anything that goes into those structures, it's probably,
I'm not talking those structures, and I'm not talking the cart driveway. I'm talking that one pipe that she showed you.
The pipe here?
Yeah,
That's the problem? Yeah.
yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
The
And
pipe-
you're saying that's inactive?
The pipe that failed, are we talking about? Yes,
Yeah.
And the tree fell over and big
So,
hole.
so that's inactive,
yes.
not
At the moment,
at the moment.
yeah.
Well, then we don't have a problem.
Well, we will have a problem because the storm drains are going to be cleaned out. And that's the problem. So,
Who's going to clean them?
well, when we met out on our site visit, there was a couple, persons from their maintenance with them too.
Our maintenance, I'm sorry,
Yep.
Becky, I didn't mean to interrupt. Our maintenance section, when they were out there that day, they agreed to go in and clean the structures within Route 20. And just try to make a general
Right.
assessment of our structures. And we've also agreed to put in a asphalt.
So you agree that some of those structures are yours?
In Route 20, they are. Yes.
So they cleaned out uncovered the storm drain
They're,
and popped it?
they're going to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're gonna
And then-
clean, they're gonna clean the sumps or whatever
Okay.
is there, whatever was installed in 1926.
When we were out there, we pointed out that, right, they're blocked, so nothing's going into that structure and going into the pipe. So at some point, these weren't maintained, it filled up. Water's now coming down here, which has caused a lot of erosion problems here, and you can see where it's running down. But once these get cleaned out, and what I kind of raised that issue on our site visit is once they clean them out, water's gonna go in there, it's gonna enter that pipe,
we're
and it's
have a
gonna
bigger
blow out
problem.
our bank more.
Right.
But, right, they need to get cleaned out because they're causing
Well, we'll have to
erosion
deal with that
issues,
then.
but-
They're probably
point.
Right, I
very
expressed my
shallow
concern.
catch basins, I would think,
Yeah.
you know.
And also, the gentleman from our maintenance section has also agreed to put in a berm, an asphalt berm, so that we try to direct some of that flow that is, I don't know, Becky, do you have
The other plan,
the other plan from the developer that showed there was some erosion
it's this one. 'cause I gave-
at the driveway, I guess I'll call it a driveway entrance, inactive driveway entrance?
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Washout.
So we're gonna put a berm across that driveway, try to direct some of that flow into the existing catch basins.
And where do you think that flow is gonna go?
Well, that's what we will take a closer look at when we're out there cleaning these basins.
So you're going to put a berm up, but you don't know where the water's going to go?
Well, it's all gonna be part of that same effort. We're gonna look at it when we're out
When's
there.
that going to happen?
I talked to our maintenance, fellow from our maintenance office today, and he said in the next few weeks, they're gonna be out there starting to clean the basins.
Well, that'll be interesting to see what that is, if it's a real catch basin, or if it's just a elbow down
Think we've
there.
gone far enough with this,
Yeah,
Jack?
I guess, so I mentioned too, when we were out the site visit, we talked about, I mean, the structure that's here, maybe, you know, it's collecting water, there's other drain pipes that are going into it right now, that it's probably holding and infiltrating water because it's not coming out the pipe, we don't believe. So I kind of, questioned, can we do something there to increase the size of something that acts maybe as like a dry well, or put a swale along there so we can eventually remove the pipe? And maybe obviously it's not something that could happen maybe right now, but work towards a solution like that, and maybe we can not need to use that pipe anymore, and that might,
Do you think that, you're saying you think there's other pipes going into that catch basin?
let me go back
This,
to
on
this.
the one that's all plugged up and everything?
No, here, this,
That looks to me as though it was some sort of a drain manhole. So there was probably other pipes that came into it.
Well, it'd be interesting to clean it out, because we couldn't even see it.
Yeah.
But I want to make clear, we're not talking about cleaning the structures off of state property.
No, just that
Just
catch
the
basin
issue.
will be very
Just the-
informative
Just the
to,
state property, just the
Right.
drainage structures on state property.
right, and I mean,
We're gonna-
since Dave's not here, don't you have a schedule? I know you have a schedule of cleaning out catch basins.
Yeah, and that's something that we start in the spring.
Okay.
You know, we're still getting out of the snow and ice season.
Okay. So you
All right,
think
I'm gonna-
maybe this was cleaned out?
I'm going to shut this down. I think we've gone
It'll go on
Forever
forever.
we can go on, right?
So the next steps is it'll be cleaned out
Yeah.
and you guys will be,
We've
Watching
actually,
this?
we've been keeping the Sturbridge DPW in the loop. They've been assisting us. In
Okay.
fact, I understand that they plated some of those, put metal plates on
Right,
some of
Yes.
those open structures.
right, that's good.
well, I
Yeah.
just asked that, keep me in the loop in your correspondence too, because I didn't know about the site visit last week,
I didn't either.
so.
But I'd like
Thanks,
to see
Bill, for
that
coming in.
basin.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
We're gonna be on you for this and for that. Both things.
Oh, you,
Thank you. Yep.
yeah, thanks for coming.
Okay, what do we got? Got 30 River Road.
You're not next, I'm just kidding.
You think she was kidding you? Same here, I wanna go home.
Just for the record, Scott Morrison from Ecotech. We've got another iteration of the mitigation plan. We had sent a copy over to Becky after that last meeting, and she had provided some comments, which we've addressed. I can kind of go through if you'd like.
Grab a glass of water.
Okay.
So what we did was I broke this up into specific planting areas. A lot of,
I'm just gonna pass out, I have hard copies from, I did forward your email on Friday to them,
okay.
so they could look at the planting plan and the plans. But here's a card copy, and if you want a set of plans, you can come up there too. but-
I'll drop by your office and take a look at that plan rather than haul that thing home. You'll be around?
So you guys are all looking at the mitigation plan here?
Right.
Okay, perfect. So as we were requested at the last meeting, and kind of explained, we kind of broke out each individual area, determined what would grow well in those areas, and we proposed plantings that would kind of fit the locations. And broke them up into areas. The first area was the riverfront area at Village Circle. That hasn't changed from the original proposal. Do you want to,
Yep,
you want to kind of zoom in on?
yep. I'm just trying to get
Show
my
my
stuff
location.
here. Where did my notes? There we go. Which one, sorry?
It's up near the entrance,
The
Village Circle.
riverfront?
Yep.
Do you know what sheet it is offhand?
Might be 4. Yep, right there. Scary that I know these plans.
Good to have people with young eyes
Yeah,
to
it's
see
number
that.
4.
Help us old people out.
Yeah,
That's
so the
here?
Yep. Area in here was the original planting area for riverfront area, so we've got 40 shrubs in there. If you remember, it's quite a dense stand of white pines through there, so we tried to plant shrubs that would do well in those shady conditions, do well adjacent to the river, kind of in those conditions. And again, that hasn't changed from the original approval.
Plan.
And then moving on, we've looked at the duck pond areas. So we've got duck pond area B,
It's
which
this
is
one, right?
this area here. We actually expanded this area from the original proposal, increased the number of saplings. So we've got 15 saplings, 25 shrubs. And at Becky's request, we increased the size of the saplings in through here. So we got 2-inch DBH.
Yeah.
Kind of the intent was kind of mix up some of the larger stuff with the smaller stuff, where you've got areas of where it's relatively open here. There's other areas that we really couldn't do the larger plantings simply because they're an understory planting, which causes two issues. One, you've got kind of existing root systems in those forested areas. So the larger the tree, the larger area that you have to excavate to plant those. So you end up disrupting the roots of the existing trees and causing additional damage. Is that combined with the second issue is that a lot of the larger trees, 1 inch or greater diameter trees are all field-grown trees. So what happens is they don't do well when you dig them out of a field and plant them as an understory planting. So that was the rationale behind why I chose some of the sizing plants that we've got. So in areas that we could, I'm proposing the larger trees in kind of a mix. Areas that are shaded or have existing trees, we're using the smaller size, and kind of mixing in some shrubs. Duck Pond Area A is the front area here. So we're proposing 10 trees, 40 shrubs in through here. If you recall, this area used to contain a petting zoo. There was an existing house in there.
Right.
Most of it was manicured lawn. So these plantings will provide some significant improvement within the 25-foot and 50-foot buffer zones as a result of this additional planting. Riverfront restoration along the eastern side of the entrance. So we've got an area here. We're proposing a total of 10 shrubs. If you recall, that's really thick in through here. So we're proposing some thinning through here. Becky asked that we make that restricted to having a certified arborist mark out the trees to be removed. We can have Becky come out, inspect those before any of that tree work's done. And then after that's removed, we can go back in and do the native shrub plantings in there. Next area is the planting plan for Paul Revere Square, which is the old Yogi Bear Square, which is on sheet. Should be the next sheet, right there. So in through here, we've got 15 saplings, 20 shrubs. And what I've done again is provided kind of a list of the plantings so that there's a mix that they can pick from to do those plantings, whether it be shrubs or saplings, and then the total number. So that the total number is not going to change, but kind of the density and the species will get mixed up a bit. Next area is the planting plan for Paul Revere Square. Excuse me, we just did that one. Revolution Drive and Mayflower Lane, which is on the previous next sheet, actually. So we've got 64 saplings and 50 shrubs being planted here. We're also specifying that 40% of those be conifers. So your hemlocks or white pine. That was one thing that the commission asked for, is kind of mix that, provide some screening plantings in through that area, which was requested. So we're doing that. And then the next area, Mayflower Lane, Meadow Lane area, we've got some shrubs and small saplings being planted in, kind of mixed in through, patched in here. We originally didn't propose anything, but it was suggested at the last Conservation Commission meeting that we propose some kind of plantings in between some of these sites and through here. So we're proposing those. And again, we're looking for, a mix of some conifers in through those areas. And then the next area would be Revolution Drive, areas between the campsites, which is highlighted here in blue. Again, some of these areas are more open, so we're proposing some of the larger trees in where it's not a steep slope, where we can get in and do those plantings in between these sites. So it'll be kind of a combination of the larger 2-inch diameter DBH and the 6 to 8 foot saplings, and then mix some shrubs in to kind of provide some screening and some native plantings in between these sites. And then the last area is down Revolution Drive, down to the waterfront, is here. So if you recall, there were 2 sites here. kind of a site backed in at a 45-degree angle here and one same here. Those two sites were removed, and this area will be replanted. Again, there's some trees in through here, so we're using kind of a 10 saplings in through here and 20 shrubs. And then finally, the last area is down near the conference center, which is, if you go back, right there. So some existing trees in through here, so we're proposing just some understory shrub plantings in through here to mitigate for those other areas. So we've gone through, again, I also added some additional details at the end of this. A couple things that Becky asked for is that the plantings be distributed throughout the areas to make the areas appear natural, so we're not planting them in rows, was an important thing that she asked for. And then an ability, if nursery stock's not available, that we can kind of substitute the species with similar native plants. I gave a broad range of plants, so I think we should easily be able to get those plants. And then we'll monitor these to make sure that they're doing well for a couple of years. And lastly, we're planning on providing a copy to this all the excavation contractors to make sure that they're aware of the order conditions and these mitigation plans. So we planted a robust and substantial plants. We're exceeding 400 and some odd plantings through these areas with about 150 saplings. They've talked with New England Wetland Plants. New England Wetland Plants has all the plant material they're looking for. So it's essentially, at this point, we'd ask that the commission, if you're satisfied with these plans, we can make some minor modifications, but they're looking to, now is kind of the prime time to get some of these plantings in. So if we can kind of get the commission's blessing and move forward with these things, that's what the plan is, to do the plantings as soon as we can, and continue with the project. If we look at the big picture, they've still got to put the infrastructure. If you recall, they replaced the sewer system, the water system. There's areas that are exposed, unstable areas that they want to get in, finish everything up, stabilize everything, do all these plantings, and get to the finish line where everything's done and complete. But they've, again, because this board issued the violation notice, they've stopped doing any work while we're doing this, kind of going through this process. And we made at least 4 revisions to this plan at this point, and we're seeking the commission to hopefully formally approve this mitigation plan and start moving forward. Be happy to answer questions.
Okay. So I went through this today because we did get it on Friday. So I went through it and compared it to my notes. Right, you did increase the tree size and some of the plantings that we had discussed. No, I didn't. For a 2-inch tree, what's the height on those trees, just to have an idea?
2-inch DDH tree is probably 10 to 12 feet, I'm guessing.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know, going back to, let me see if I can find, I'm getting good at this now. Here, we had talked about this area on the phone a little bit. I didn't know.
Yeah, those are all existing trees in
And
through
they're
there.
still there?
They're still there, yeah.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if, right, those were removed or not.
No, all the work was contained through here. So there's like a pile of boulders, I think, in this last. But those
Over
are,
here, okay.
yeah.
So I remember seeing that, but I didn't know where, okay, so thank you. It's one of the questions I think I had about that area. Now, when we talked about, I was saying it was kind of hard to, visualize and get an idea, and we wanted to, make sure people didn't plant in rows, but what would the spacing of these trees in those areas be?
I think generally, as kind of a rule of thumb, like 1 tree per 15 square feet. So one of the saplings per. So
is that how you guys decided the number of saplings for areas?
Generally, the area, we went a little bit lighter where the areas had more forested canopy, and kind of went more with the shrubs. in those cases, but that's a general rule, like that slope is, 15 feet on center, but you don't want to plant them on center in rows like that, so the intent is to make them fit naturally.
Okay. And then, just so the commission knows, they did submit, yesterday a request for an amendment, so that official request will be on our next meeting agenda, just so you're aware of that. And with that came the plans that shows the actual locations of like the sewer and the water lines. We didn't get a real chance to look at that, but, and we talked about it in the phone a little bit. I just want to make sure, we're knowing that the plans that are coming in, I mean, we talked about it before, they're within the existing, previously disturbed areas, so it's not clearing new areas, just to make sure we're very clear that we're not going to result with new disturbance that we're not aware of. Can you guys confirm that? Obviously, we'll look at that.
Yeah, they made
but-
quite a few revisions to make sure that it was, they laid it out so that you've got water and sewer on both sides of the road. And the other thing is when they get the sites, they laid it out so water and sewer and electric go underneath where the sites are proposed. So they come up in the back of it, but to get there, goes through where it's gonna be disturbed or is existing disturbance for those existing sites. So we put a lot of thought into laying out the utilities to make sure that that they're doing it in such a way that they're keeping it within the confines of existing disturbed areas.
Okay. Now, Scott, here we have the light blue,
Yep.
which is the same light blue, which in the plan is for between the campsites. The amount of trees, now I'm gonna find where that is, but
Yeah,
just wanna,
so the lower areas are
Revolution
the-
Drive?
between campsites,
It's
okay.
on the
No.
second to last page, 3550 square feet, the area between the campsites.
Yep.
Is
So
that,
this 24 trees, you've got 4 per area. That 4 per area is here, right? 'Cause there's
Yes.
6 of these.
in between these sites, so you get, yeah.
Okay. So should this blue area be different? Or, what are you planting there? Are you planting more trees there? Because that's not part of the slope, and then.
Yeah, I think the intent was to plant those 4 trees in between these, and then
Yeah.
we can spread the shrubs throughout.
Can you plant trees here too, or is there, I just didn't know, it didn't seem like.
This already has trees proposed.
No, I know.
Things throughout that. And then this area in the back,
Yeah.
we've got, is spelled out with
Would that
the
be?
Meadow Lane area. So it's the 2550 from Meadow Lane.
Okay, so that's different.
So that's spelled
than
out differently.
this.
So that's got saplings and shrubs in those
Oh, okay, I
areas.
see that arrow pointing here. Okay, it's just the same color, so I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. It's very,
So you're saying this is not inclusive, this is in addition to? This plan that you handed me? Is this inclusive of the planting you're gonna do?
Yes. So we've broken up all the different areas and
Okay,
provided.
no, I know that,
planting.
but I'm just saying, you were saying that that's different planting. I thought you were saying that there was other planting that was being done.
It's a different area
Oh, a different
called out
area.
on
Okay,
this as
sorry.
opposed to.
Misinterpreted,
Okay.
okay.
did you guys look at, one of the comments I think I had was, can you increase the berm size in some areas? I mean, I don't know if that's possible, but has
Yeah,
anyone
it's-
looked at that, or is there a reason why you can't do that to?
It's tight because, keep in mind, there's trailers to be able to get these in and out.
Those are permanent ones, right?
The last thing we want to do is plant the tree right here and one on the other side and then say, come back to you and say, we got to cut trees down to move this trailer.
I thought they could lift them out, though, no? No.
It's
Okay.
not quite
All
that
right,
easy.
well,
I think they did that when they removed a whole bunch of these.
These are on
But-
wheels and axles.
Yeah, but these.
oh, these are
those-
permanent
tho-
ones?
That's correct.
Oh,
They're
okay. I
Wheels
thought
and
they were
axles.
permanent.
See, part of the problem is that the original plan had the trailers going the other direction. So I think that would have been easier to access them from the road versus now having them sideways so they have a nice view of the lake. That makes it trickier to get them in and out of those spaces. That's basically my interpretation.
Yeah, we
of
looked
this.
at this before, and we were splitting. we were determining whether you spin them and back them in like that, or if we could do them on a 45. But every time you turn this thing around, you end up having to steepen that slope. And when you get that slope really steep, it becomes unstable. So the thought was, get this to a 2-to-1 slope, which is a reasonable slope, plant it heavily so that it's permanently stabilized for eternity, and then spin these sites this way. So it wasn't, you know, there was a lot of thought that went into this. It wasn't just, you
Well,
know.
how many of these areas do you have now, Bill? 35? Did you tell me you had 30 camping areas?
How many sites do we have on that road?
No, how many do you have in the nation?
Grounds.
Campgrounds.
Campground?
Campgrounds?
Yeah.
11. I've
11.
owned as many as 50, but right now just
Oh.
11.
So you got 11. So, I mean, you know how these things get parked beforehand. Didn't take a lot of thought to figure out how to park them.
And I think this is the easiest way to get them in and
Yeah.
out. Because keep in mind too, if you spin this trailer, you gotta somehow get this, pull it
I
out.
understand completely.
Yeah.
Where we're gonna go with this?
Well,
Beck, you-
I was gonna ask, so this stayed the same, and I think we had a brief conversation about this, but we talked about it at the meeting too. I mean, this area, I mean, there was a lot of trees removed over here. Is there anything
Yeah.
that can be put there?
Based upon the tree removal, the count that we had, let me see, 40 were proposed to be removed and 42 were actually removed. So there's 2 more than were proposed to be removed through there. And then we've got this big, you know, planted area right up along the edge of the pond, so there's really not much of a difference. And we've provided, again, you know, we've provided some substantial plants through here, you know, for a project. You know, the changes that were made, you know, I looked through the regulations, and I think based upon local regulations, it could have been approved. Obviously, he didn't get that approved, and that's why we're here with a substantial and robust planting plan, so.
When you looked through the regulations, was there any place where you said you could do what you want and then come back? Just, I mean, if we're gonna talk about what's going on.
No,
Okay, I'm just
I don't
saying, you know,
wanna-
don't give me the, you
Yeah,
know,
just,
woulda, coulda, shoulda.
correct, but I'm just saying that we're coming back with a robust plan. He's looking, you know, he's got 10 buildings under construction. He's had 50 building inspections, you know, for that. Hasn't had any issues there. He wants to complete this project with no additional issues.
Yeah.
That's exactly
That's what
why
we're
we're
working toward,
providing,
yeah.
we formally submitted an amendment request, providing plans showing all the details and specs for all the additional
Okay.
water and sewer stuff. So we're trying to make sure that there's no misunderstandings as we move forward, that everything that's presented is exactly what gets constructed.
Good, good. Paul?
No, I have no comments. I think they've done what we've asked, really. And it looks much better than it did the last time, so I'm fine with this.
Steve?
I have like a real minor thing, putting in hemlocks, and we keep talking about the hemlocks are all gonna
Woolly
be killed
adelgid,
by woolly
yeah.
adelgid. Are you gonna spray these and protect them, or I'm
I think
just,
they have in the
kind of a
past.
minor point, but I'm just curious.
It was one of those things, I was reluctant to put hemlock in there because of this specific issue. But then there was quite a bit of pushback that you were looking for evergreen plantings, so I added it. I know that they have done some treatment in the past. I'm assuming it would be something that they'd be more than willing to look at in the future, and if the adelgid becomes a problem, they
Yeah, I
can
just-
certainly treat for it.
Joe?
You know, it's like we keep seeing, so let's get a tree guy in here.
Yeah.
He's
Now we're in
treating mine.
trouble.
Joe Kowalski, Ganesh Tree. Yeah, Philip hired me on board prior to the activity because he was concerned about the trees. And specifically with your hemlock question, is really, it's the only shade-tolerant evergreen you can put in an understory around here. You could only hope it got established and got big enough to treat. If it was, you could, what have I experienced is you can treat trees, and they'll, like the tree in your yard, and it lasts 5, 10 years. And it may not even be an issue, so I would not plant hemlocks because of that. He's hired, I'm the certified arborist on board, and he hired me to make sure that mostly that the trees that are planted become established. That's a key